Audible is my road trip companion.
It's kind of my quiet alone time.
Audible is a routine for me.
It's like a fun night school for adults.
I could easily be seduced into locking myself in a place where I do nothing but listen to books.
I never was interested in historical fiction before, but I'm obsessed with it now.
There are a lot of classic and big titles that I feel like I've missed out. Since I don't have time to read, might as well listen.
If I want to catch up on the news or history or learn what's going on in the world, I can download a book and listen to it.
Because I listened to her story over and over again, I made the decision to go ahead and follow my own dream, which was to help other veterans.
I think there's like 180 books in my library now. It changes your perspective. It makes you a different person. It's true. It's so true.
Download Audible and start listening today.
It's not just books, it's like poetry, it's musicians, and
it's eye-opening, a way to experience
types of points of views and different types of authors.
I love the Festival of Books.
Have all these LA Times journalists. You can just walk up to people like Layla Ali, Bill Plaschke, you know, all these different people that are out here. So it's a really great opportunity.
For 25 years, the Los Angeles Times Festival of Books has gathered something more than 1 million book lovers to celebrate the written word. First on the campus of UCLA, and then for the last 9 years on the beautiful campus of USC, we have been filling the farthest reaches of the campus with happy buzz about books and reading. And now, each year, 150,000 Angelinos, from grandkids to grandparents and the grandest names in literature, gather on a glorious weekend in April, as if we had any other kind. They come here for vital, meaningful conversations, for discussions, for a big swap meet of ideas and debate drawn from the books that inspired them and the excitement generated by the authors who wrote those books. On top of that, my additional personal satisfaction comes from sticking it to New York, because this is the biggest book festival in the United States. The festival was created in 1996 by longtime LA Times journalist Narda Zecchino and philanthropist Lisa Clary Reale. It's simply intended to bring together the bibliophile community, people who create books and the people who love to read them. It started small. A small amount of money, a small number of writers, a small number of LA Times volunteers. Now there are hundreds of volunteers who make the whole thing possible, and who sometimes get to zoom around on golf carts, shuttling their favorite writers to and from their events. The festival was an instant hit and quickly expanded in size and reputation to feature some of America's and the world's best-known writers. Over the years, we have watched and listened with rapt attention as Russian writer Alexander Raskin interviewed the legendary Ray Bradbury on his being named the 1997 Robert Kirsch Award winner. At the book festival, Ray sat patiently signing books for every last person in line wanting to meet him and tell him how much his work meant. We marveled as the lions of literary journalism, David Halberstam and Gay Talese, expounded on war, news media, sports, politics, and civil rights. And we were distressed listening to former LA Times book editor Steve Wasserman, Mark Danner, Christopher Hitchens, and Samantha Power debate American power and the war in Iraq. This event has been and always will be about giving readers the chance to know the world in great and even startling detail through the eyes and the words of the frontline experts, the storytellers, and the poets. And we need you all, now, more than ever, both writers and readers, to be curious, to be open-minded, to learn and interpret and engage with the world as we find it and as we imagine it can be. Titans come to this festival. And for those of us, like me, lucky enough to be there as authors and interviewers, it has meant some unforgettable moments with remarkable people. I shared the stage with bibliophile and actor Levar Burton, a true friend of the festival, who got a standing ovation from the audience even before he had said a word. On television, in Roots, he took TV viewers into America's ugly past. On Star Trek, he took them into the universe's daring future. And as the host of Reading Rainbow, he got more children excited about reading and put more books into their hands than 120 years' worth of McGuffey readers. On 2012, for the 20th anniversary of the civil unrest, we invited Rodney King to talk to me about his memoir. Some 400 people showed up in a big hall at USC and waited and waited. King arrived 40 minutes late, but I used that 40 minutes to stage an impromptu town hall, asking the audience to share recollections of the uprising, what it meant, and how they were changed by the events of that spring. And when Rodney King arrived for what I think would be the last interview of his life, the audience had made common cause with him as a storyteller. And years before then, I was on stage in Royce Hall with the brilliant Carl Reiner, and I counted it as an enormous feather in my cap when I made him laugh. And as the line from Casablanca goes, it was the beginning of a beautiful friendship that only ended a few months ago when Carl died. In this year of COVID-19, it isn't April, but October. We are all in our home offices, living rooms, and bedrooms, and not crowded into lecture halls and booksellers' tents at USC, but still we persist. And hey, bright side, no parking problems. Before we hear from our next speakers, let's take a moment to listen to a few of those great conversations from festivals past.
I don't know how many of you here intend to be writers or actors or painters, but you got to do it every day, and you have to do it with love. It mustn't be a job. It mustn't be a task. It's got to be pure joy, huh? And jump out of bed and say, let me at it, huh? Let me at it.
For one of the greatest writers of our century, it is appropriate to have one of the greatest voices of our century. May I present to you Mr. Charlton Heston.
Nick turned his head carefully and looked down at Rinaldi. He senta Rinaldi, senta. You and me, we've made a separate piece, huh? Rinaldi lay very still in the sun, breathing with difficulty. Not patriots. Nick turned his own head carefully away, smiling sweatily. Rinaldi was a very disappointing audience.
This debate, this discussion, this exploration of issues that have attached themselves like so many barnacles to one of the most difficult and thorny questions before the Republic is entitled American Power and the War in Iraq. Let me introduce first Christopher Hitchens, who is arguably one of the most gifted polemicists of his generation.
The reason why my book is called The Long Short War, and the reason I wanted it to be introduced under that title, is that what we've just seen is not the end of a 28-day war, but the end of a 13-year one, which began in 1990.
Here it's very tricky, of course, because the administration is such a balancing act now, because on the one hand, they can't stay too long, because that's just confirmation of all the worst motives of empire and land grab and oil grab and all the rest. On the other hand, they can't leave tomorrow, because then they'll be subject to the understandable criticism that they've opened up this Pandora's box and then left people to their own devices.
You know, in Open Mic, you wrote that the riots and the death of Martin Luther King Jr. point out how social catastrophe and transformation is either covered or concealed in television. What did you mean by that?
It's very difficult to get at the virulent character of racial transgression and engagement in this country. You know, it's hard for people of different races and ethnicities to speak honestly and frankly and openly to one another. And it's much more difficult for us to bust out of the narrow framework within which race has been cast in America.
I feel a fulfillment
and instances where I have reported on the unreported, where I have chosen and been successful in telling stories that otherwise would have not been told.
And when you're first in it, you're carried away by the idea of bylines and people know who you are. Isn't that thrilling? And maybe an award, isn't that thrilling? And a bestseller, that's thrilling. And then later in life, there's a sort of greater wisdom about it. You learn a lot about democracy and about the courage of ordinary people. It's been an incredible, enriching life. And I think that's when I now look back, I think more about that and what I got from it as a person more than the collection of books.
It's amazing to hear those voices from the past. And now I'd like to introduce our featured guests, Dr. Carol L. Folt and Chris Argentieri. She is the 12th and the first woman elected president of the University of Southern California, an internationally recognized life scientist and award-winning teacher. Before joining USC in 2019, she led the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. So welcome, Dr. Carol Folt.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I love being a part of this and the discussions that you just showed going on. I can't wait to see them myself next year in person and enjoying them virtually this year.
And joining the 150,000 other people who will be there looking for you too, to thank you for hosting us. And since joining the company in late 2014, Chris Argentieri has led initiatives to extend the Times brand and its journalism to additional platforms, as well as fostered collaborations with other organizations as the LA Times president and its chief operating officer. Welcome, Chris. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. Good morning, Pat.
So I'd love to talk to both of you and ask you to speak about this Festival of Books partnership entering its 10th year. That's a big 10 decade between these grand institutions, two of the oldest institutions in the city, USC and the LA Times. So, Carol, how does the festival fit into your civic engagement? Well, let's start with Chris because he's my boss. And your civic engagement and the community building goals we have here at the Times.
Yeah. First, I want to thank you, Pat, for hosting us this morning. I can't think of a better friend of the festival over the years, so thank you. And I'm excited to be here this morning with Dr. Folt as well. And we really look forward, since Carol is still somewhat new in her role, we look forward to getting back on campus, as I'm sure we're not alone in that desire. In terms of the festival and the partnership with USC, and it's really a critical part of our community engagement goals at the Times, the festival itself. The partnership with USC has done a number of things for the festival. I think no question it has helped in terms of the programming. We've been able to expand the types of authors, the diversity of those. And so it's been great in enhancing the programming. The environment of the campus at USC, I can't think of another place in Los Angeles that would allow for the attendees to enjoy something as broad as poetry to virtual reality. Also of critical importance, it has made it more accessible, being on the campus in a number of ways for the community. And I think even evidence this year, we'll do 25 different conversations to celebrate the 25 years of the festival over Zoom, as I think most of you out there watching are getting quite used to using as well.
And Carol, how does it work with USC's mission?
Well, you know, USC has this deep desire to be part of the neighborhood, part of the region, and be very, very important in service and together in partnership with the community. And I thank you, Pat, for having me here. And I love being here with Chris because I think this partnership with LA Times about books and learning and reading is really a tremendous statement of that civic engagement. You know, for us, it's wonderful to host it. It's a beautiful sight, just your pictures of the students reading on McCarthy Quad, these amazing authors talking about such important issues, and people being able to interact with such joy and proximity. And I love that they come to our campus. You know, we want people to see USC's campus as part of the community. I think it also underscores our mission as educators, as teachers. wanting everybody to be able to be reading and have literacy. I think it also comes together that we're both two of the oldest still active non-religious institutions in LA, as you mentioned. You know, our birthday was on October 6th, and we in 1880, and LA Times did its first issue in 1881. We've grown together, and we shared the goals that this festival brings forward: educating people, bringing truth to the community, getting information out there, sharing research, art, uplifting stories, and of course, joy. And that brings the city together.
So both of us, the LA Times and USC, are vital intellectual and cultural fixtures. And you talked about how close we are in age. And so you see the Festival of Books as combining, I guess, these two major institutions to bring the community together.
I do. I think that's been an amazing partnership, and not many other places, cities could talk about a university and a newspaper growing through the incredible growth that has happened in this region since we were both born. And I think you see that, and the fact that we focus on literacy and learning and reading in this festival just is so important for our future.
And Chris, where do you see that kind of cultural synergy working?
Yeah, I think very, very similar in that, you know, USC is, you know, clearly educating and inspiring the next generation of our community, be that in Los Angeles and California and globally. And I think the Times plays a similar role in convening people through our coverage, you know, and both also inspiring and educating by, you know, providing information and hopefully empowering the community as well. I think so very synonymous with the efforts of the University of Southern California. As Carol mentioned, the age of the institutions also provides some foundation, obviously, for the city. And I think as that relates to the festival and books and the role of that within the community, you know, I think the times we're living in now, literacy is so critical within people's lives. One, to give us the opportunity to escape, but also as we're facing really unprecedented challenges as we move forward, I think it's ever more important that we look at these foundational skills and the role that institutions can play, both private and public, in improving things like literacy, providing access to programs. It's an important part of what the Times does, and it'll be an important part of our future.
And both of these institutions are dependent on literacy. You could argue that the entire underpinning of a democracy is dependent upon a literate population that knows and understands the issues. So, Carol, maybe you can talk about reading and literacy as fundamental skills and as fundamental to our everyday lives, and maybe especially during these difficult times.
Well, you know, I think it's always important. I think it is always very important. And there's so much data, so many stories, studies that have shown the relationship between literacy and success of students. One of the most important things universities need to do is really help eliminate those barriers, those gaps that begin at a very young age with things like literacy and potentially health. So this is a big part of what USC does. Our Rossier School is one of the best in the nation in its early literacy teaching programs. So I think that we've seen, and I think we know that we can do better. We want to do more. We want to educate students. We want to help parents that want to read to their children, because these are such important gifts that last a lifetime. The festival going back to that, plays a big role because, again, it brings on the big stage wonderful people who are writers, and it can get young readers and older readers excited. It also allows us to help with some of our other neighborhood initiatives, like our neighborhood academic initiative, where we're working very hard to get kids from local schools to get training and learning and reading and literacy throughout high school, and then go on to university. 30 of the students from that went to USC this year, and they go all around the region throughout California and beyond. And getting them participating in the festival at an early age is another extremely important advantage that we give them that helps them with success for life.
Chris, we don't realize how much reading we do every day, whether it's a freeway sign or a label on something that we want to buy. And reading is reading is reading. We can apply it across the board, from the LA Times to the book festival, to the people who go there who may become writers themselves one day and depend on reading.
Yeah, as you said, I mean, our business is clearly dependent on literacy, but I think bigger than that is the community's dependent on it as well. And the storytelling, inspires curiosity, helps develop learning skills. And I think what's also extremely important is for those of us who are avid readers, I think it helps you also develop a different level of empathy. And empathy, important always, I think more important now than ever. We're living in a city that has a school district, and while things are improving and graduation rates improve, we're still graduating students here in Los Angeles with less than half of those students meeting state standards in the language arts. So I think this is to improve on literacy takes institutions, as I said, private and public. The Times does what we can do in the area. The festival is obviously a huge part of that, and we continue to build on that over a couple decades. We have other programs. One comes to mind of Reading by 9 that we've been doing for over 20 years that brings tools and resources to educators. Another program we continue to build. And, by way of our coverage, hopefully we bring light to continue not only the importance of literacy, but the continuing challenges we face. And, you worry a bit going forward because our list of problems as a society isn't exactly getting smaller. So I don't think any of us can do enough to continue to shine a light on the importance of literacy.
And to highlight authors the way we usually highlight movie and television people in this town really underscores it as well, I think.
Yeah, I think in last Sunday's book sections in the Times, Pico Iyer wrote a essay that did a pretty remarkable job of, and one of the things that was highlighted was the different level of passion people bring to a conversation about books compared to music, television, or other forms of the arts, and I think very true.
And he said that many groups doesn't know many groups that gather to discuss movies or music in the same way, inside the skin, the soul of the other, which it does. It allows you to experience an otherness too, which is a singular advantage even in this multimedia society.
For sure.
So we put
one thing, Pat,
Carol,
one thing
please.
that we've noticed I think is really relevant to what you're saying too is that in a pandemic, books are really important. We don't want everybody just doing everything on a screen. And we did deliver more than 4,000 books to our USC families of schools because we want kids to be able to have that joy of books, sometimes the tactile sense of books too, as they're early learners. And that's something that I think it's emphasized again with the Festival of Books, because it's a different way than just sitting in front of a Zoom screen or how they're learning right now. They just need that. And to sit next to a parent and read a book together, or to be with a group of people who have read the same book, these are things that can really enrich during this time of the pandemic.
Well, we put together a video that highlights USC's relationship with these community schools. So let's meet some of your local students and administrators.
This is my bookshelf. This is one of my favorite books. It's called Miss Tracy is Spacey. This is my favorite book, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Meltdown by Jeff Kinney.
The USC Kinder to College program is a kindergarten through 5th grade reading and writing program. We're making sure that we're taking students who are in need of extra help in order to read with proficiency by the end of 3rd grade, and we keep them all the way through 5th grade to ensure that they can get to the highest levels as possible.
Her stubby-fingered hands played on her desk. You have been told that a certain dark wizard has returned from the dead. He wasn't dead, said Harry angrily. But yeah, he's returned.
The USC McMorrow Neighborhood Academic Initiative is a 7-year college access and success program built on academic rigor from 6th through 12th grade.
The NAI program is not just about academic, it's also about creating the complete child. So not just focusing on academic, but also the social aspect and making them confident in order to speak out and make a difference in the future.
My name is James Westbrook II, and my favorite book of the summer is Steven Universe, The Tale of Steven by Rebecca Sugar, the creator of Steven Universe.
I love reading. Reading allows my mind to dive deep into the book. It teaches me new vocabulary and it expands my interests.
So far through the pandemic, I've read over 25 books because reading books during the pandemic has opened up my knowledge greatly.
I love reading because every time I read a new book, I learn something interesting and new vocabulary. In elementary, I won this medal for reading.
Being exposed to diverse narratives helps you develop an open mind, which I believe is essential to learning and growing as a person.
This book was given to me by my dad. I still enjoy reading it to this day. Everything about it is incredible. So find a book that interests you, open it, and start reading.
Aren't they inspiring? I hope you're reading at least as much as these kids. I love seeing them and the value they put on books, the importance of books and reading in their lives, and particularly now when we're home and on screens all day. So I'm going to turn what those kids are doing to both of you. Carol, what are you reading now?
Oh my gosh, I knew you were going to ask me that. And I thought, well, I can't tell you everything I'm reading now because I tend to read a lot of things. As a president and a scientist, I read a lot of professional stuff, but beyond that, every single day I read, and I have more than one book going. Fiction's my favorite for reflection and relaxation, but I like history, poetry, essays. So I'm going to tell you just a few of the things I either just finished or I'm reading right now. I just finished The Splendid in the Vial, Erik Larson's Churchill during the Blitz. It was amazing. I love fantasy and science fiction, maybe not surprising for a scientist. And I just started N.K. Jemisin's The Fifth Element. And I'm actually listening on Audible to Neil Gaiman's Sandman, which I read as a graphic novel many years ago. I'm reading Terry Tempest Williams' gorgeous The Hour of Care about our national parks. I tend to read those essays. And I'm really looking forward to a couple new books being talked about today. Ben Lerner's The Topeka School. I just purchased that on Kindle, and wow. I'm going to read that one now, and I am looking forward to the next book in USC Dornsife professor Deborah Harkness's All Sold trilogy. And last, in terms of a book about Los Angeles and the future, I'm reading Pedro Noguero, our new dean of the Racine School, called City Schools and the American Dream.
Wow, you have a very sturdy bedside table, I can tell from all of that. Let me ask Chris Argentieri. I know his first answer will be he's reading the LA Times, but after that, Chris?
Yeah, almost exclusively the LA Times. Yeah, I am not keeping up with Carol and certainly not some of the kids from the video. I have not read 25 books since the start of the pandemic, that's for sure. I did just finish a fascinating book by Bill McKibben called Falter, which presents quite a bleak case for the future of humanity, both from a standpoint of the environment, but also some concepts of genetic engineering and artificial intelligence, machine learning. There was a bit of optimism sprinkled in there, but pretty eye-opening for sure. So after completing that somewhat depressing exercise, then I just started reading a new book from Carl Hiaasen, which I'm a big fan of. And I think is evidence of some escapism for sure
That'll
from what we're living through.
I think you've got a good pairing there, the alpha and omega, and Carl Hyacins will perk you right up and make you laugh, and we all need some more of that. So both of you, thank you so much. I've been scribbling little notes so I know what to add to my reading list. A wonderful conversation. And now in the grand USC and Festival of Books tradition, I'm pleased to do something that's always been on my secret wish list and welcome the University of Southern California Trojan Marching Band. Oh, thank you, Spirit of Troy. I remember them from when they accompanied Fleetwood Mac on Tusk. Fleetwood Mac having a moment again. Thank you again to Dr. Carol Folt and to Chris Argentieri. And thank you, each and every one of you, our Festival of Books community, for joining us this morning for the 25th kickoff program. I hope you will tune in to the rest of our events today. Henry Winkler and Lynn Oliver discussing their new book right now at 10:30, and a panel for young adults featuring Brandy Colbert and other outstanding young adult writers at noon. And over the next 4 weeks in 25 different events, you'll have the opportunity to meet virtually former Governor Jerry Brown, Crazy Rich Asians author Kevin Kwan, Ray Bradbury Prize winner Marlon James, Pulitzer Prize winning novelist Marilyn Robinson, and many more. So please visit our website at events.latimes.com/Festival of Books to RSVP and for more information about these great upcoming events. And read on, baby.